Welcome to the Mom is Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here.
Mama's Well.
Yes, she is. Hi, Krystal. I am thrilled that you said yes to come and sit in that yellow chair with me. And I just want to introduce you to my guest or to our listeners. And I want to say how I met you. So let's just start with that. And then I'm going to let you tell a little bit about, because only you know you like you know you. And I want everybody else to get to know you like I got to know you. I wish I knew the year. Do you know the year?
2017.
Okay, I think I asked you that. Yeah, I remember you told me that. Okay, 2017, I went to a foster adoptive parent, mama, it was only for women, retreat. And because I needed it at that time, we were still foster parents. We were not adoptive parents at the time. And it is a weary, weary journey. And so this retreat, someone invited me to be, I actually was a breakout session leader.
Yeah, I came to
but I got to go. You did? Okay, yeah. I got to go to the retreat, and you spoke on the big stage. It was a little stage.
First, I was a breakout speaker, and then they moved me to the big stage. Okay, you got it. And made me speak again.
Yes. Well, oh, really? You weren't even supposed to do it?
No, they came to me at whatever meal we had, and they said,
wow.
Are you going home after this?
I would have never got to hear you because I didn't know about your breakout session. Yeah. Wow, that makes it even more special. So Krystal was speaking, and I am not going to tell her story because I want her to tell it, but she moved me. It was amazing. And she touched me because she spoke of something that was very, very near and dear to my heart. And so I have invited her to come on this podcast, and I know that you will be moved as well. Krystal, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing in 2020 right now. And then we'll go back to tell the rest. But tell us about right now. What's going on with you right now?
Trying to keep my head above water.
Okay. Like a lot of us were in the COVID
Yes. What a crazy
season.
Year. No, I am a wife. We're about to celebrate 6 years of marriage.
Okay.
I am a mom to the sweetest little 18-month boy, and he is our sunshine, and we're just having so much fun with him. I am a doctor of physical therapy, and I work at the Veterans Hospital. Okay. And so I do outpatient neuro PT with veterans every day, which I enjoy. I've been doing that for 7 years. And just been working and spending as much free time as I can with my family this year, which has been the silver lining in it all. Yeah. It's just the tremendous amount of family time. We loved that.
Were you and your husband virtual for a bit, or did he work?
My husband's been working from home most of the year. Okay. They're in and out of the office now, 1 week on, 1 week off. Okay. And I work from home 1 day a week, and then I'm in the hospital 4 days a week, but I do mostly telephone or video appointments.
Okay. How do you do that? So are you in the actual workout? I think when I think of physical therapy, I'm thinking of helping people move, walk, exercise, lift weights, things like that. Use bands. Is that what you do?
Yes. Since I am an outpatient therapist, my primary goal is to get people on home exercise programs. Okay. So I actually don't use a lot of equipment if I can help it, and that's partially because of our patient population. Okay. And what I learned early on was that if I use equipment, they feel like they have to have the equipment to get better. So I really try to equip them to do things on their own that they could do at home.
With their own body strength?
Yes. Okay. So a lot of stretching and strengthening and encouraging them to move more. Yeah. And it's been really good. But
keep moving or swimming. But I always say moving.
Yes, that's what almost everybody needs.
Yeah,
Let's
we
just
need
move
to keep
a little bit more than we are now.
Yeah, that's good.
So yes, it's been very possible to do via video. Telephone's a little bit harder, but I've been able to see several patients that way.
Good. Okay.
It's been interesting.
So the last time we saw each other, you were about to give birth. I mean, really about to give birth. And so how has that been? I see you on Facebook, and you guys just look amazing. You have a great relationship. Okay, Facebook, I know Facebook is not a good depiction, right? But you guys look great on Facebook. You travel, you're taking time for yourselves, just the two of you. And then obviously you're spending lots of time with that baby. And
Yeah. So I'll give you the in-between stuff,
Yeah.
in between the Facebook
Yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
No, we are just very fortunate. We have a very good life. And we have family that helps out with our son whenever we need. And so actually every week we get 24 hours. That is just me and my husband.
Wow.
And so that's huge for us. I would say the first year was pretty rough for us. I know a lot of people really love the infant stage.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I'm one of those people.
Yeah. Okay.
I definitely see a lot of the sweetness in it and treasured a lot of the moments, but it was just really hard. And I think with the first kid, it's probably just a big learning curve.
Yes.
On top of, we became parents much sooner than we had planned to.
Okay.
And so trying to adjust our expectations. And then we didn't do a whole lot of marriage work the first year of parenting because we were just trying to figure out how to keep our son alive.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so by the time that he turned 1, then we were finally able to focus more on our marriage.
Yeah.
So we've been doing a lot of marriage work this year.
You mean you have to still think about your spouse after you have a baby? Oh, gosh. That's hard, isn't it?
Yes.
No,
And
it's not hard.
it uncovered a lot of stuff for us. So this year's been good. We've just been doing a lot of
Yeah.
work, whereas last year was more baby focused and this year's more marriage focused.
Good.
But yeah, we just love being
So
together, the three of us.
Y'all, yeah, you look like you're living like the Cinderella thing, right? The Cinderella dream. And this is where I want you to tell us a little bit, because that's not what you had growing up. Will you tell us, go to that hard, I'm taking you all the way to the hard place right away, but I want you to tell your story, because that's what you did for me that first time I met you. And I just think your story needs to be told. And so tell us about growing up. How'd you start this world?
So I was born in Fort Worth almost 32 years ago.
Okay.
And I was born to a woman named Ivy. She had 2 kids already and had many abortions. So I always just thank the Lord that I was not another statistic, and just grateful to be here. But she had a lot of issues. You call them almost distractions would be a nice way to put it.
Okay.
Things that were kind of ruling her life, choices that she had made. And so we got put into the foster care system when I was 3 and my middle brother was 5. We had an older brother who was 10 and we got separated from him at that time. So he went to live with his dad. We had separate dads from him. And we were in the foster care system for a couple of years, in and out of multiple foster homes, which was hard. And then in between foster homes, we would go to an orphanage type place that we called the center.
Okay.
No idea if that's
You don't know
what it
where
actually was called.
Okay. So you don't even know where that place was? You don't remember?
I do in my mind.
Okay.
And I know like the interstate that it's on and that it's like up on this hill. But when my husband and I have driven back to see if we see it,
And you can't find it. Okay.
It's not still that. So
Okay.
there is a building that looks like what I thought the place was, but it's not the same. So I don't know. That's kind of hard to tell. But anyway, we got adopted. I was 5 and my middle brother was 7. And so we lived in Fort Worth for a few more years. And then when I was 8, we moved to Northwest Arkansas. And that is where I grew up.
Okay. So you were 5 and your brother was 7. And your other brother, the older brother, you never saw him again until, I mean, I know I don't want to go there, but how old was he when you stopped seeing him?
He was 12.
He was 12. Okay. So you saw, when y'all were in foster care, were y'all together?
Not together, but we had visitation rights with our mom, and so we were able to see him.
Okay.
And then there was trial stuff going on, so we still saw him a little bit.
Just like at visitations. Do you have memories of those times before you moved into foster care, or do you have? You probably didn't know I was going to ask you about this, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But do you have? Just because I like to, it gives me perspective of my daughter. But do you have? Do you have much memory of that, or is that something that you've kind of just? I know there's certain things in my mind that in my life that I have a really hard time remembering because I think I've blocked them. But
So I have several memories from before we were adopted, which I find fascinating because I know the way that the mind develops, like you really shouldn't have a whole lot of memory at those ages. But I will say that most of what I remember was negative. And my husband can attest to this. We talk about this sometimes, but there's something about the way that my brain has developed with time where that happens to me a lot. I'll remember the negative and then I just kind of forget about some of the positive. But that was kind of hard for me because I had a lot of negative memories. Things like being left alone and things like our brother taking care of us, but him getting in trouble for doing that. And, you know, some abuse type things. But then I also had some positive feelings toward my biological mom.
Sure.
And so I didn't really know what to do with both of those together, but I do have some.
Yeah, that's a really great point that you make. I mean, I think that's something that foster parents could possibly not consider is because, you know, these horrible things have happened to these children, and yet they still want to talk to or see or visit or potentially even go back to biological families. And so I think that's very interesting and great to be aware of because that's the truth, right? Because people can do bad things and you can still love them.
And I think for a long time I thought there was something wrong with me because I had those positive feelings.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any way to justify them.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I would just say, well, maybe it's because she birthed me. You know, I'm just thankful that she birthed me and brought my life into this world. But I knew deep down there was more to it than that. I just didn't know how to say, well, this is what I remember and this is what I've been told, but this is how I feel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about your son right now. Okay. He's only 18 months old. Do you think that he would have good feelings for you as far as, you know, I mean, I know it might've been different, but you were with your mom for a period of time, right? Good or bad?
Yeah. It's almost like that sense of attachment that you get from being
even in the womb.
Yes. From being born from someone, that is there naturally that I think can't be taken away even with poor choices.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I think it's kind of just ingrained in us.
So at some point, did you allow that to be okay for yourself?
I did. I went through a phase of extreme hatred. So
towards your mother. Okay.
So I had these positive feelings toward her and just kind of like, I love her, but I don't know why. And then I want to say in my teenage years, I became very, very angry. And just feeling that she was selfish and how did she choose all these things over us? And just very, very hard, dark thoughts. And then I had some guilt with that, you know? So that was hard to work through. And then I think it was after she passed away that I became more open to my feelings. And I was told by a family member after her death that she was a horrible mom. Remember that. She did not deserve you. She did not care for you.
That was helpful, wasn't it?
Certainly not what I was needing at that time, but that opened my eyes to know, no, that does not align with what I feel. And as I'm grieving, that's not helpful. And so then I started to become aware, you know what? I love her. And I can't give a whole lot of justification other than she was my mother and she carried me and she birthed me. And I'm thankful for that. And then I started realizing, you know, I really think she had a good heart. I don't have any way to, again, justify that or say, well, because of this. But I just had this sense that she was a really good person with a good heart and good intentions. And she just made poor choices that ended up ruining her life ultimately. And I just had this almost empathy toward her.
Yeah, that's good.
And
okay,
so that's what's carried on to this day.
Hey, and that, I mean, empathy doesn't hurt anybody. It's beautiful. So tell me, let's go back to the story because I interrupted you because I wanted to know a little bit more about that. But we left off where you were adopted, you and your brother, your older brother moved in with his father. And then you guys moved to Arkansas. So tell me about how you were 5 and 7. Okay. What was that like when you first got placed there? Did you think this is real? I'm really staying here? Because you said you'd been in and out of some places. Did you wonder, like, is this permanent? Or what did you feel around that?
Absolutely. So I remember being asked by our social worker if I wanted to be adopted and thinking, what is that? What do you mean? And
Really? Did you even know that word?
I think I knew it, but I needed it explained like this really could be
Okay.
happening.
Yeah.
You know, like give me
'Cause
the
you're only
reality of my
5.
situation right now.
I got to remember this. You're 5 years old. That's how old my youngest daughter is right now. Wow. Okay.
So processing through, okay, give me the details to see if I know what I'm signing up for. And, you know, she
Bless
tells
your
me about
heart.
adoption. I'm like, yes, absolutely yes. Why would I not want to? And we'd had a great foster experience with my parents. And so I was very
Okay.
eager
So you
to
had
do
been,
that.
you were being fostered by them.
Yes.
At what age?
I don't know when it started.
Okay.
And I don't know how long we were with them before
Okay.
the adoption happened. But we did spend the most time of our foster care with them.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to get that kind of detail from them, but we don't talk
Yeah,
about it
that's
a whole
okay.
lot. So, in any case, yes, sign me up for this. This sounds great.
Yeah.
But before adoption, I think I was kind of gentle spirited and just along for the ride and just trying to like please people and keep my head down and hoping that something would stick. And
Yeah.
then when it did, I think I was elated at first, and then I became scared. And so I really started like lashing out. I became very combative and like kicking and hitting and yelling. And I frequently would pack up my belongings and go sit outside on the front porch and say, I'm going to go move in with so-and-so,
Yeah.
the mailman or
Yeah.
the painter, or, you know, some random stranger, which I know is very hurtful for my parents. But I think when I started working through this, I realized I didn't think that it would stick because the others hadn't. And so I was trying to make them say, okay, we can't do this. This is too much.
That's right.
And then I guess I worked through that, became a little bit more mature, but I do remember lying in bed at night in Arkansas. So sometime after age 8, probably preteen years, thinking like, okay, these people have been very kind to us and they have treated us well. It all feels like a ploy. Like at some point they're going to realize like, okay, we've got them where we want them and they trust us now and they're vulnerable, and then we're going to turn on them.
Wow.
I remember lying in bed being fearful of that and wondering what that would look like and where could I go and what kind of things might they do to us. And I don't remember how long that fear lasted, but I remember it being very, very real.
Wow. I think what you just said is so profound. It is for me as an adoptive mother, because in my mind, my girls are never going anywhere. But I 100% believe that at least one of my daughters, the one that's came to me, to us as an older child, I believe that she probably does that. I mean, that makes sense, what you just experienced, because you had never seen that.
And there's a narrative in your mind that can be created where you think, I'm not worthy of love. All the experiences I've had have told me I don't deserve that. So then somebody's giving that to me. Something seems wrong here. There's got to be an ulterior motive. There's got to be something else. They're really good at playing this game.
Yeah.
But at what point do the tables turn?
Yeah.
And I think it just had so much to do with how I felt about my identity versus the truth of what it was.
Yeah. And I mean, you said something else. Hold on, let me think what it was. You said you were very compliant. I can resonate. That resonates with me because that's what I did, you know. So you were very compliant until it was finalized. Then there's the test, right? And so your behavior was really indicative of fear. Yeah.
And I actually had a season like that after we got married. And I kind of thought I would never get married. It just seemed so permanent to me, and I didn't understand how I could make those kind of promises to somebody, not knowing what my life would look like or who I would be. And then I met my husband, and I knew that that is definitely what, you know, the Lord wanted for me and where my life was going to go, and I was eager to. But the closer we got to marriage, the more fearful I got. And then after we got married, I really just started, I had months of intense fear and thinking he was going to leave me, and just even making some poor choices, like almost from a place of
testing.
deciding like he's already gone. And yes, maybe testing boundaries to see like how serious is he, you know. It was really hard. So thankfully he was very gracious with me, and we worked through those things together,
Yeah.
and we did counseling and
Yeah.
got through that. But
Wow.
yes, it's a pattern I've seen in my life multiple times.
Yeah, because I think I've read this somewhere, can't quote it, but that developmental trauma, which is what you've experienced, it shows up in different other stages of development. When we get married, when we have children, when the children hit certain ages, maybe that were triggers for us. Like I've read that. I wish I could say where I read that, but that makes sense to me. That what you're saying makes sense. And I had similar experiences of, my husband embracing me, and I would curl up like this, like in a fetal position, not a vulnerable position, and just different little things like that I think points back to the childhood trauma that all of our children, I know you're raising a biological son, but you are our children. And that's why I think your story is so important for us to hear, is that you experienced that fear and that your behavior was telling of that fear, And anyway, so what did your parents do with all that?
So I became pretty curious about my past. I'm guessing around the preteen years, ballpark 10 to 12. I'm a questioner by nature. I am that way in everything. I don't take anything for just what it is.
Yeah. Are you a 6 on the Enneagram?
I am a 6.
Me too.
You nailed it.
I knew I was going to find a 6.
As recent as yesterday, my husband was telling me how suspicious I am of everyone always. And it is true.
Our core need is safety, right? Because we didn't have that.
So I am a questioner, and I started asking the harder questions, probably in those preteen years. And I got a lot of pushback, which was very hard. But I learned very quickly that it was a taboo subject in our home. We weren't going to talk about this. This was all bad, and it is what it is. And you now have a good life that you need to be grateful for, and let's close that book, which was really hard for me, because then I wondered, well, what is wrong with me? Why do I want to know? Am I ungrateful?
Yeah.
And then I wondered, well, what's wrong with me? Am I dirty? Am I bad?
Yeah.
Why can't we talk about this?
Right.
Did I do something wrong? And then it felt like it had to do with me, even though it wasn't. So I just decided, after enough pushback, I'll just also push that back. I'll just stick it under the rug and leave it there and hope it doesn't come out.
So you complied. Okay.
Yes. But usually when you sweep things under the rug, they don't stay there.
They come back, don't they?
They might stay there for
Yeah.
a few weeks, months, years.
Yeah.
But they do like to creep out. And
So when they pushed back, what did that look like for you? Like, you were asking questions. Did you have social media? I know you're a lot younger than me, but okay, I didn't have it either. I was just wondering. So no social media, computers.
Minimal. We had
Okay.
one in the basement. We had to, decide.
That sounds creepy,
this
doesn't
is
it?
how
The
much-
computer in the basement?
Yeah, this is how much time you get on it from this time. And it was connected to the landline. So,
Okay.
if there's a phone call that we're expecting, then you can't get on.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
all of that. It
Okay.
was dial-up at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
So, no, we did instant messaging.
Okay.
Those are the days of,
so
like,
there
Yahoo
wasn't a
and-
way that, because right now, with our kids and this in 2020, I mean, your child, as soon as they know how to use a computer, can get on and find out all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So that's a whole different ball game
Yes.
than what you had. But your only source of anything at that point was just to go to your parents,
Yes.
which is what you did. And your parents pushed back. So what did that tell you? I know what you told me, or I heard what you said. You said that said there's something wrong with me, right? I can see that, like that. Why am I feeling like this? I shouldn't be feeling like this, because they are good people taking care of me, and they said I shouldn't feel like this. I can see that. What else did it say? Anything? I mean, what other things did you take away from that?
I think I felt a lot of shame, that if it were something that couldn't be talked about, that I had been soiled in some way. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a good way to articulate it, but I can give you a
Very.
really good example.
Okay.
Because of all those years of this being an unspoken thing, and me not having details, when I finally did have many more details, I went to a bachelorette party. And that night we were sitting around the hotel room talking, and somehow the conversation turned to me. And I didn't know very many of the girls very well. And they started asking about my upbringing, or Krystal, you're adopted, right? Like, tell us more. And then asking like probing questions. The girl that was getting married is a counselor.
Oh,
so
okay.
She's got really good questions.
Yeah.
And she would just fire them one after the other. And I just got so involved in like answering the questions, and was like, wow, like they're so fascinated. Well, then the night ended and we all went to bed, and I felt so exposed and dirty.
Yeah.
And I thought about everyone else in that room and how different their lives had been and their upbringings. And I called my husband and I said, I have to come home.
Yeah.
He said, it's like 2 a.m. Like, you
I
need to
don't
go
care.
to bed.
Come
And
get
I said,
me.
I need you to come get me. He said, you need to go to sleep. So at like 5:30 in the morning, I said, okay, I'm sitting outside out front of the hotel. I'm ready for you to come get me. And I did. I left the bachelorette party and I didn't tell anyone that I was leaving.
Wow.
Then I ended up having to call the girls and
Yeah.
apologize and tell them what happened.
Yeah.
But I just had this overwhelming sense of like dirtiness and shame because I had just shared all these things that, wait, these are things we don't talk about. And then I just sat in a room full of people I don't know and shared all that. And they were just so fascinated. And I felt just so naked.
Yeah. Yeah. So since then, I can spend about 5 or 10 minutes talking. Every time we've talked about very deep things. Like we aren't like daily conversation. We don't talk
We're
to
sixes.
Yeah, we see each other once every 18 months. But when we do talk, we talk about and so obviously you have become more resilient to shame, to use Brene Brown's words. Are you familiar with Brene Brown?
A little bit.
The shame guru. She says we all will experience shame, but the goal is to become more resilient to shame. Like you said, move a little more, get a little better. So you've become more resilient to your shame because you are sitting here talking about it on a podcast, or talking about it on a stage. So talking about it is one of the ways that we become resilient. So you've obviously done some work from that point, but you've only been married 6 years, right? So you were married. So in the past 6 years, even, tell me about what that looked like for you.
So I think for many years, this baggage that came from my past felt so heavy and burdensome. I compartmentalized it almost like, let's pretend that was a bad movie we watched and we'll just try to forget about it.
Talk about that.
And that didn't help me in my healing. And so, as I've already mentioned, there were things in our marriage that it would start to show up. And I just realized, like, I'm just not healthy. I need to do some work here. And my faith is really important to me. And ultimately what I realized was I hadn't really surrendered this part of my life to the Lord. I think I was partly mad that he allowed all that to happen.
Sure.
And then trying to reconcile, like, how do I believe that you're good, but these were the things that we walked through. And so I had to wrestle that out, my faith. But I got to a place where I was able to surrender all of the past and my childhood to him. And I think that happened through a lot of counseling. I've done many rounds of counseling and prayer. And so I did. And I finally told him, I said, you know, this is a mess and I would never have written this for myself, but you did, and it's your story. And so I'm giving it to you, and I'm doing that with open hands. And now what I want is to allow you to use it however you want. And I'm here and I'm willing, and I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah,
But
I think
here
you
it is,
said
and
that.
I want you to redeem it, and I don't want it to be in vain. And so I just said, here I am. And that's when this journey began of
telling your story.
Yeah.
And so, you know, one thing I found in dealing with my shame, because that is essentially what has happened for you and I both, is because we weren't allowed to process our trauma, we wore it, and we became ashamed of who we were. And it breaks my heart for both of us. And so, that's the gap. But the beautiful gift is there is a tremendous amount of compassion and empathy through some many rounds of therapy and healing, which therapy is such a beautiful thing. I wish it didn't have any negative connotation at all.
Agreed.
It's so beautiful. And I feel like everyone deserves it. Like every single person deserves it. And anyway, I could go on about that. So I don't want to talk about myself too much, but I very much connect with you on the shame. And speaking of, and I don't, I know, let's go back to your parents. And I don't want to stay there too long because I know that's kind of their story to tell, but just from your side of it, what do you think that was? I mean, to me, that was shame as well. Maybe not shame about you. I don't really know what it was. From my parents, it was easy for me to see like the shame because it came from divorce and addiction, and those are shameful things. And maybe that's what it was. Maybe they were trying to protect you from what they perceived as shame, a shameful mother. I don't know. But to me, it all kind of stems in shame. What do you do? I'm rambling, but take those messy thoughts that I just said and put them into your eloquent words there and tell me what you're thinking.
So I do think there could have been a component of shame. Maybe you don't really want people to know the backstory because it is so hard and difficult, and maybe a little bit of that, but I don't know that they took on as much of that. I think a lot of it for them was pain. And so instead of meeting us where we were when we would ask questions, it was more, what does that say about me? If the questions are being asked, does that mean that we're not adequate as parents? But I think overwhelmingly it was fear.
Sure.
And so an important note about my parents is they unfortunately had suffered tremendous loss before they adopted us, and they had lost 2 biological children.
Wow.
And so I think that drove a lot of their responses.
Yeah.
Whether it was through discipline or whether it was responses to our questions or any component of the parenting model, I think that they wanted to try to ensure that they weren't going to lose us because they had already lost so much.
So they held on so tight.
Very, very tight.
Yeah. That's very understandable. Has that helped you understanding that piece to have more compassion for them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's so hard to have compassion for ourselves for what we lost and still have compassion for the one that we can feel like kind of took it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you have 2 little areas over here that I don't know if took something from you, but didn't give you something that you needed, might be a better way to say it.
Yeah. I think a lot about the way that things were handled, and as a 6 probably, I just try to put myself in other people's shoes and replay the scenario. And I think to myself, okay, if my son were coming to me with questions and he had a past like I did, how would I respond to that? And overwhelmingly, I don't want my parenting to be marked by fear, because then I'm going to rob my children of freedom that they need and have difficulty extending love in ways that they can receive it. But I would like to think that I would try to enter into it with him, even though I wasn't there, and maybe it would be hurtful for me to do that on an individual level. I think I would deal with that on my own terms. I'll deal with the pain.
Yeah.
And I'm going to meet you where you are and try to walk with you through that. And that was something profound that one of our pastors spoke about many years ago that I've never forgotten. And he just talks about the ways that we really need someone to meet with us, and we need them to walk through things with us, not meet us on the other side or walk around it.
Yeah.
And that's where so much healing is done,
Yeah.
and that's where relationships are built.
Yeah.
And I really like to think that that's how I would respond.
Yeah, I think you will. Yeah, I think you will, because you've been through this, but we don't, when we know better, we do better, hopefully. Right. And, I can't imagine losing a child. I don't want to label, I'm not going to label myself this, but I can struggle with fear. I don't want to call myself a fearful person. I think I have been a very fearful person, and I'm learning to be brave. But losing a child, that's like hard.
Unimaginable.
And who knows what kind of, grieving they did.
And I think also on the same line of walking through things, we could have met with them there. Not that we were there when they lost their children, but maybe if it had been such that we had lost siblings that we hadn't met, and we could walk through that pain with them.
You did.
Rather than compartmentalizing that this is our life and what happened before we knew you, and here was your life and what happened before we knew you. All that is in the past. We'll deal with our stuff. You have your stuff, and then we start here.
Yeah. Well, you said something one point. It's been a year and a half that you said this, but I won't forget it. You said, I wish we could have come together in both our grief. Like, you had lost a sibling. Like, you have this sibling that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, but your older sibling who was 12 when you last saw him, you lost a sibling. They lost, and what you described so eloquently at this one point when I heard you say this is, I just wish we could have come together as four grieving people and gone to, I mean, that's just, of course you do wish that. And gosh, parenting is so hard. Like, nobody tells us how to do it, and we certainly haven't done all our healing work when the first baby comes. They are actually, what I believe is, they're just like these little mirrors that just invite us to the next layer. And you said something, you have a blog, I think it's your name. Hold on, I want to give it. It's Krystal. Is it okay? Can people reach out to you at this? Is that what you gave it to me for, right? Or they can read your blog or email you or something?
I think there should be a way that they can reach out to me on that. Yeah, so
it's Krystal Vento, and it'll be in the show notes at wordpress.com. But I went and I read your blog, and there was something that you said, and I'm going to try to quote it, but you said, I'm a construction site, peeling an onion. You had those together, and I know exactly what you were saying. Do you remember exactly what you said?
I don't, but just essentially that I'm always under construction. I mean, this whole life is in process, but I think of all these opportunities, like having a child, as you said, inviting us in. So if you think about an onion and the different layers,
to another layer.
We don't just peel off a layer and we're done. Well, we peeled off a layer. Okay, we did some good work, and we may feel good for a little while. Well, then something else comes along.
The crying really starts when you get deeper into that.
we need to peel back some more layers. And so each one's an invitation to go deeper and deeper. And sometimes you think, gosh, I've already been here. I've already done this. I don't want to go here again. I thought I was healed. And then you realize, oh, there's more layers.
Yeah.
And so just going deeper and deeper into the onion throughout the process.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that, and that you are open, because we do think that. We do think, oh, I've dealt with this. I've spent a lot of money on this one. I don't want to do this one again. But we're not done. We're a construction site. Yep. I like that. Okay, let's talk about, have we left any gaps here in this story? We talked about, because I want to move into your brother, but that's recent. I want to make sure, is there anything else that you feel would be relevant?
So we may talk about that. That was 2009, and then one more major event in 2013.
Okay, so so take us on your timeline and tell us about that.
So I had one picture of our oldest brother that I kept for all the years that we were separated, and I would pray over that picture and just ask the Lord to please somehow reconcile us, bring him back into our lives. I had
Hold on, one question. Had you asked your parents about him too?
Yes.
Did they know how to get in touch with him?
If they did, they didn't tell me.
Okay.
But they didn't give much information.
Okay, go ahead.
I think he got put in the box of this is the not good stuff.
Okay, got not good.
Probably
bad, good.
Yes.
Okay.
Not by his own fault.
Yeah, I understand.
And so I prayed over this picture for years. And then when the internet became a little bit easier to navigate, then I started looking online. What can I find here? What I found was that it was hard for me to figure out my biological mom's name at the time that we got adopted, because she had multiple husbands.
Okay.
I knew my last name prior to adoption. So what I was able to do on a people search was look up her name with my old last name, and then they'll list like other names that this person has had. And so then I saw like 3 different names by her. Then it'll say, here's other people that may be associated with her, and his name was on there. So then I had his name and first and last name. I knew his first name. And then I started looking to see if I can find information about him. And I did. I got an address and a phone number. but I never did anything with it.
Okay.
I just
And that was in
kind of
when?
scared.
2009?
That was probably 2008, 2009.
Okay.
Just kind of scared of what I might stir
Sure.
up
Pandora's
if I did
box.
that. Yes. And so I just kind of sat on that information for a while. And I got a phone call in July of 2009 from my adoptive dad. And he said, I don't want to get you too excited, but there's something I have to tell you. And we received a phone call from your brother's wife. And so they had found our information. They weren't supposed to have access to it because of adoption, but they basically did somebody a favor and somebody did somebody else a favor. And they were able to get it. And so he contacted my parents and said, I want to talk to my brother and sister. So my parents were very cautious. They said, you know, we really want you to be wise about this. You have no idea who he is or what kind of state he's in. But we did need to tell you this.
Yeah. Well, that was awesome.
Yes.
Because they could have, I mean, they probably realized at that point with the internet and all this stuff, that he's going to find you. But I'm thankful that they chose to talk to you.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I called him immediately and he was just exactly how I remembered. So he, like I mentioned before, took care of us when we were younger. So I just had very benevolent feelings toward him. Almost that he had been the one to care for us and raise us during the time that we were with him. And so we would just talk for hours on the phone every day, just catching up and trying to make up for lost time. And then he came to visit a week after we had reconnected. And it was one of the best days of my life. Just that for me was monumental in learning so much about who I was. It felt like with there being three of us that I grew up with one sibling and we were very different. And I kept thinking like, are they sure?
Are they sure this is my real
sure? And then when our oldest brother came into the picture, I was like, okay, like I can tie all this together. I see. And he and I are very much more alike. Not that that's a bad thing that, you know, my middle brother and I have differences, but it really helped me to understand a lot more about myself. And then he also had many more memories than we did because he was older. And he actually was the person who testified against our biological mom on trial. Not because he was upset with her, but because he had the information that they wanted to know. So they put a 12-year-old on trial, which was just a really hard thing. But he was very open with sharing the memories that he had. And so that was really, really helpful to me. Whereas our middle brother hasn't really wanted to talk about that stuff over the years. He's much more closed up, like, let's pretend that this didn't happen and move on with our lives. We've got better lives now and there's no need to go back. So filled in a lot of blanks for me.
Yeah. So now you have somebody that's been there with you in it that you can talk to. And what year was that?
2009.
2009. So it was not too far after you did something and then he called you. Y'all were like on the same page.
Yes, it was, I want to say months.
Yeah, that's so weird.
After I had found the information, it just kind of was.
But you hadn't done anything with it.
No.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Wow. And so you still in relationship with him?
Yep.
Yeah.
He and his family live in Texas and we get to see him not too often because they don't live in Houston, but it's been a
Super
really
healing for you?
Yes.
Yeah. And super healing for him?
Yes.
Did he
Very, very
have,
much so.
was his childhood safe and grew up okay? I mean, everything okay with him?
Yep. His dad actually lives with him and his family now.
Okay. Wow.
He lives in their home. They have a great relationship.
Yeah.
But it was just the two of them as they grew up.
Growing up, it was just the two of them. Wow. That's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So continue on because you have a timeline you're telling me about. Remember?
Yes. So that was 2009. And then when I reconnected with him, I told him I really wanted to go and visit our biological mom in prison, which had always been frowned upon. So in 2009, I was 20. So I was old enough at that age to have made that choice if I wanted to, but was also kind of scared. And so he said he understood that desire because he had the same desire and he went when he was 18. He said he did want me to know that it was not a good experience at all, but he understood why I wanted to do that. And if I needed to do that, he supported it, but he asked that I would have him go with me.
Okay.
Which was really helpful to me. So I just kind of was waiting for the right time. I was in grad school for 3 years and just prayed on it. And when 2013 rolled around, I just remember it was much heavier on my heart. And I just took it as, this is the year I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So I started trying to get some information. Our biological mom, would write letters to our oldest brother and send them to his house. And he got kind of tired of them. So after he reconnected with us, he started giving them to me. And at one point in that year, she told him that she was terminally ill and that it was his fault that she was in there and he needed to help her. Well, she put a lot of blame on him for her incarceration. And so I wanted to know.
Because he testified when he was 12 years old.
Yes. So I wanted to see if this was true. So I started calling around within the prison system, and essentially I was told that I wasn't on the list of people who had access to her medical records, but the person said, I can tell you she's not terminally ill. And point blank said that. So I then became very angry and felt that our biological mother was trying to manipulate him and play on his feelings to try to get out of prison. And I just decided I'm not going to go. So I sat on my anger for a few months, and then in September of that year, I got a phone call, like 6 phone calls in a row, but that she had passed away. And found out that she actually was terminally ill. She had passed away from cancer, and she also had been just down the road from us at a prison facility for people with severe healthcare needs.
Wow.
So then I had to work through that.
Yeah.
I didn't go have this visit that I wanted to have with her. And I think for a long time I felt like, why do I want to visit her? And then after reconnecting with him, I felt that it was an okay desire. I wasn't weird.
Yeah.
But
finally had someone validate your feelings. Thank you.
But then I had to work through that. But I will say that also was monumental in my healing process, because I got called from the prison to come pick up her belongings. And
wow. How did they get your contact? Because you had called and asked about her? That's so crazy.
I think they might have called my brother, and he said, I don't want to go get her stuff.
Yeah.
It was either that or that I lived much closer to where she was.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so we went. I was dating my husband at the time, and I'm just really surprised that he wasn't like, I'm getting out of here. This is really strange. He was willing to go with me. Had you told him
your story?
Okay. So he was willing to go with me. We went to the prison, and very strange day, and picked up her stuff. So I kind of avoided her stuff for a few weeks. I was waiting on like a weekend. I didn't have anything going on where I could really go through it. And I spent an entire day going through pictures and cards and letters that she had written to other people, letters that she had received while she's in prison. And then I think most profound was journals that she had written while she was in prison. And I left no page unturned. I read every single thing. And so that gave me so much more insight into her heart. And
what a gift. I think I said this to you once when you told me that. That's a huge gift.
So that really helped me a lot too. So even though I didn't get the visit with her, which I don't even know what I would have said to her, I think I just wanted to tell her that, like, I'm doing really well. Like, my life is great. And despite where we came from, like, everything's okay. But also I think I wanted to ask her questions, like why, how did this happen, you know? But anyway, I obviously didn't get to, but the journals really answered a lot for me. That's
great.
So those were 2 really big parts of my healing journey.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Krystal, I want to, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna ask from you. I don't think I told you this. I don't remember. Putting you on the spot again. But before I ask this next question, but every time we do this podcast, there's the website is mamaswell.com. And so I think I've shared a little bit, but mama being well, right? We talked about that. But there's all of my adult life, when I've come up with, you know, something I needed to, what area I need to grow, or someone says something that I think, oh, that's so good. I write them on these little note cards, and they're on my, you know, it might be a scripture, some sort of affirmation, or sometimes it's something from a Disney movie, like I think Kung Fu Panda is like control is an illusion, or something like that. I can't remember them all, but I know I have some from Meet the Robinsons, and just different quotes, right? And I just either write them or type them up and put them on in my bathroom, my car. And so when we started this podcast, I thought, wisdom from the well. Like we need wisdom from the well cards. Like every time we do these podcasts, there's such like amazing stuff that comes. And so the next question so that's what they are. So you download, you go to the show notes and you click on this link and it'll take you to a Wisdom from the Well card. And I've made them, they're all unique. They're pretty. They have flowers or they have swirlies or something. And then I put the quote from our guest, or sometimes it's from me, or sometimes it's from a book that I've read or whatever. But what I want to ask you is, so today I'm going to be pulling something from you. Now, whether we come up with it right here and now in front of the whole wide world, or we go back and I watch the podcast, I'm going to pull something. And what I want to ask you is, what you've lived through this, right? You've experienced the shame, all of these gaps in your life, right? The time that you were alone with your brother taking care of you, the in and out of foster care and different locations, the broken attachments, mom's incarcerated, not being able to ever communicate with her, all of these things, and to where we started in this beautiful healing process that you're in with your husband, who clearly adores you and is 100% supportive of your healing, and your son, and like all of this journey. What would you say to people like me who are raising children just like you? Like, what would you want to say to them? Because that's what I want them to hear. I want you to offer. You've already probably pricked their heart, and if they were like your parents or my parents, and they were fearful of bringing all this stuff up, what would you say to them? And then from that, we're going to probably craft something that's going to be awesome. It's going to be on our Wisdom from the Well card. It's going to say quotes around it, Krystal Vento, because you are a very deep well, and what you have to say is important and valuable. So tell me what you would say to those foster parents.
So I think so many times the stories that are tied to these circumstances, none of us would have chosen them. You wouldn't wish it on your least favorite person.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I think a really great reminder is that we don't get to choose to write the stories, but we do get to choose what will be done with the stories. And so for me, that meant pursuing a lot of healing. And I think for a parent, it could mean entering into that story with the child and helping them walk through that and pursuing healing from the inside out. Because that response makes all the difference. And if fear is driving the train, you can't walk through it. You got to walk around, and then you miss out on a lot of the healing and a lot of the beauty.
Gosh. My cards aren't that big.
Yeah,
They're little 5.
That was a lot of words.
Yeah, no, but it was
Cut 3 words
good.
out of
No,
that.
it was very, very good. I think the thing that I'm most drawn to is this entering into it together. Like entering into the pain, that just makes me want to cry.
Well,
just to come into the pain with you. That's so beautiful.
It's profound. And I don't know that I realized it to such a deep, to this depth until my biological mom passed away. And I will say, I reference this frequently when I'm trying to articulate that concept. But my husband, of course, he didn't know her. He just knew about her. We were just dating at the time.
Yeah.
This is a mess.
Welcome.
And he came to my apartment and he sat with me that whole day. I had to leave work. I didn't know how I was going to process through this. How do I feel? I have a lot of feelings. Why do I have so many feelings? And he left work and he came to my apartment and sat with me. And so that whole day, I would cry some and he would just sit with me. He didn't say a word. Gosh. And then we would go to my kitchen table and we put together a puzzle. Yeah. And then when I couldn't put together the puzzle anymore because the tears were coming, we'd go back and we'd sit down and I would cry. He just sat with me. Wow. And I remember that day being so healing to me and very much what I needed. And I've never forgotten the way that he did that and want to be able to do that for other people. Of course, it looks different in every situation. Sure. But I think that was really profound. And there's just so much more that can be gotten from these messy stories when you're walking through them. Yeah. Versus around them or sweeping them out of the way.
We leave so much on the table, right?
That's exactly what I wanted. Was I didn't want all this mess to have been for nothing. Okay, well, I have a bunch of baggage in my past. Yeah. Like, that's unfortunate, but we move on. No, I wanted it to be used for something. But then I realized, oh, that means hard work and walking through to get to the other side of healing. And if you have people to do it with you, even better.
No, we need people. We need people to do it with us. And how insightful is the word that comes to my mind of your husband to just sit there. Because when we're uncomfortable with someone in pain, the first thing that I do is I talk. Well, what about this? Well, what about this? That's not what they need. They just need me to be there with them.
Yeah. And when I think about parenting as a whole, I pray over my son every night, but my second prayer, I have one primary prayer. My secondary prayer is that we would have a relationship with him every day for the rest of his life. And that's what I desire the most. And I think entering into the hard places, whether it's biological or adoptive or what that looks like, is what will result in that relationship.
Wow. So how are we going to craft this, Krystal? You're a good writer. Enter into the hard places with them. I don't know. You got anything? If not, we'll go back and think. We won't waste their time right now, but we'll be good.
Maybe take them by the hand, enter into the pain with them, and walk with them through it.
Yeah.
We
got to have the enter in together because that's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get it. It's going to be good. And you won't know what it is until you click on the link and download that Wisdom from the Well card. Okay. Before we're going to wrap this up, but is there anything else that you want to say? Is there anything else you have to say?
I don't think anything major. I just, I appreciate the opportunity to share. Overwhelmingly, it's just not my story, and it's really the story that God is writing, and I consider it a privilege to be able to share it, but it's really just a big picture of his goodness, his faithfulness, and his love, and that's the specific way that it's manifested in my life, but his love for all of us, and this is just how it's looked for me.
We find the gifts in our gaps, and that's what you're saying. And that's what I've found. The hard places are where this beauty from ashes, right? This beauty comes. And you definitely, and I don't believe, I think we're like soul sisters or something, but I know that you must still struggle, surely. Tell me, because I will feel more comforted. No, just kidding. With frustration and anger, and I'm sure, right? You don't always stay this calm.
Oh, no. No.
Okay, well, because that comes out, right? You're not pretending that doesn't come out. That comes out. Well, none of us are. We struggle. This is a struggle. Life's a struggle.
Many days when I think, gosh, why does that have to be my story? I just don't want that to be my
stupid story. Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful story, and it's unveiling, and you are a construction site that's building this beautiful. What is it, a home? Is it a hotel? What is it? We don't know. It's something beautiful, right? It is. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming over here again, and your husband, and leaving your son for a little while. I know these are your days off, so thank you for that. And don't forget to thank you for joining us. And don't forget to download that card. You won't know what it is until you do. And to like and subscribe and to leave a comment. We love all that. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Mama's well.
Yes, she